Good morning, scholars, and welcome to our next lecture on description of the study area. So when you're describing the study area, you're supposed to focus on three things: the physical characteristics, the socioeconomic characteristics, and justification for selection of your study area. So let's start with the physical characteristics. In the physical characteristics, the first thing that we expect you to describe is the location of your study area. So you describe this in terms of the geographical coordinates. For example, you may say Unza is located at 27.555 degrees to 27.112 degrees east and 28.556 to 27.1234 south. Then you would have given the physical location such that whenever somebody is reading your work from any part of the world, you just enter the coordinates and say search, and they will be able to locate the exact location where you actually found this. And you need to give the relative location of your study area. What are the surrounding areas? What are the surrounding areas in the area where you're doing the study? So if it's at Unza, you're going to say Unza is surrounded by Kalingalinga in the south, Helen Kaunda in the east, East Park in the west. Unfortunately, it's east, but it's on the western side of the target area, and then you may say Kalundu on the north, and you're done. Or it is located along Great East Road with Kalingalinga south on the south, and then Kaunda on the east, East Park on the west, and Kalundu on the north. You would have given the relative location of this area that you're targeting in relation to other surrounding areas, or maybe other nearby popular places. Like you can say such a place is located nearby such a big town, or a few kilometers south of a particular town. That's much acceptable. And then you need to give a map that shows this location. Do a simple map. You can either extract from other good documents, as long as it's very clear and it has a zoomed in exact location, and from there you zoom in and try as far as possible to show the details of that area for people to appreciate what it's made up of. And then apart from the location, we expect that you need to describe the climatic background. That is, if it is necessary for your study, because I'm giving you all the general parameters within each broad category under physical characteristics. So I've talked about location, climatic background. If that is important, you may describe the temperatures, and on a long-term basis, the rainfall, precipitation. And if you're doing a climate change related study, you may actually describe beyond temperature and precipitation. Look at other variables climatically, so that people appreciate the climatic background of that area. Describe the vegetation that is found in that area, if that is necessary. Describe the geological and soils cover in that area. And again, that's just a reminder so that you are aware of the physical characteristics that are required. So if the geological and the soils cover in such an area is relevant for your study, you need to do that. For example, if you are studying on mining activities, obviously the geological part will be very relevant. If you're studying on soils, you're studying on, let's say soils characteristics. First thing is you have to also describe the soils that are found there. Or if you're doing something about farming, people would be interested in knowing the soils background of that area. Under physical characteristic, you may also describe the hydrology. How many rivers are there? What types of drainage patterns are found there? Are there reservoirs? Are there pools? And so on and so forth, wetlands, swamps. But that also depends on the nature of your study. For example, if you're doing a study on, let's say, the impact of COVID-19 on the environment, maybe it may not be necessary to start describing the geology, but one of a must requirement in the physical characteristics is the location. Location must always be there, whether you're doing it for medicine or whichever field, you need the physical location. But for these other parameters, you need to check whether they apply in your context. And then after you've done the physical characteristics, you need to also describe the socioeconomic characteristics of that area. And also there, it's like the same principle with the physical characteristics. You don't describe everything, but you need to know the generic parameters that are required when you're doing the socioeconomic background. So when you're describing the socioeconomic background of your study area, you need to provide the population of that area, how many people are there, and what are the population densities, so that people get an idea. Is it a highly populated density area, or medium or low density area? And at least they're able to relate very well with certain responses that will actually be coming. You need to describe what type of settlement is that where you are actually doing your study, what are the means of livelihood in that area, what are the main economic activities, and then any social cultural backgrounds that you may want to give. For example, you are studying from the western part of Zambia, you want to say how many people are in western Zambia. What's the type of settlement that you find there? Is it a village, peri-urban, or urban setup? And maybe what are the main economic activities? Oh, they do fishing, they do agriculture, they will do charcoal burning, they do small-scale businesses. Social cultural, you need to talk about the cultures of the people in the western part of Zambia, among others. So again, this is just like a generic list. But at the end of the day, you may need to streamline which socioeconomic parameters you would want to include in your report. Yes. And after you've done that, you need to give a justification. Why did you choose a particular area within northwestern Zambia, or within Luapula province, or within northern province, unlike other places? So you need to give some few justifications. Okay, the reason why I chose to study, let's say Kalingalinga, or maybe Mrs. Compound, or wherever you're located, maybe depending on the nature of your topic, you find that there's this prevalence of the same problem in this area. So I resolved to actually do a lot of research, and I found that there's need to do a study here because people need solutions to a particular problem. Or sometimes you may actually even refer to some earlier scholars who recommended that further studies must be done in certain areas. So you're like responding to that recommendation for further study. That is actually acceptable when you're providing justification of your study area. So don't forget, when you're describing your study area, there are three variables what you're looking for depending on the nature of your study. The physical characteristics, of which the first one, or a must be location of the study area plus the map and so on and so forth. Then from there you need to see, are there other physical characteristics that need to be defined in the section under physical characteristics. When you're done and you've put them up, you need to go to the socioeconomic characteristics. Are there certain socioeconomic variables that we need to include in the socioeconomic background? Once you've done that, then you go to give a justification, and where you need to give a reference, and the justification also give. And also that applies across the board in the content of description of study area. Try to give some citations. Don't just write from the head, oh, Kalingalinga is all, Luapula is found, or Mansa, or Solwezi. No. You need to give citations to justify where you're getting that information from. If you have any question on this, please, I'll be glad to share with you further perspectives. And I hope that you're also interacting with the module that is, I believe, freely available for you since you have already paid. Make sure that you look through that. And I think also, please do ask for any sample if you want a sample of what your friends did in the past. I'll be very glad to share with you, but not necessarily to copy what they did. If you do the copying, you're going to be in trouble. Thank you very much, and God bless you.